Welcome to the third module on the Masterclass on Nutrition, Grains, and Legumes. If you missed the previous two modules, this is the third module of a 6-module course, and you can get all the modules on our YouTube channel, the Smoothie Lovers channel. So if you're just jumping into this module, that's fine, but you might want to watch the other two modules first. But if you don't, you'll learn a lot just watching this one. So I'm your instructor, Todd Kolbeck. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Health Studies from the State University of New York. I'm a former instructor at the Natural Gourmet Cooking Institute. I'm certified in Health and Fitness by the American College of Sports Medicine, and I'm certified in Chinese Herbology by Dow University. Currently, I'm a life and business coach at CCG Coaching. So let's go back to Dr. Weil's anti-inflammatory food pyramid, and we're going down to the layer here on whole and cracked grains, which he recommends 3 to 5 servings a day. Pasta cooked al dente to retain those nutrients 2 to 3 times a day. And then beans and legumes 1 to 2 times a day. All right, well, most Americans are, not really getting a lot of whole grains or legumes. Pasta, I think they're doing okay though. But, let's really get into this. What are these whole grains? And how do we incorporate in our diet if we're very, very busy? Okay, so I'm going to talk today about good carbs versus bad carbs. I'll talk about a variety of ways to add these whole grains and legumes to your diet very simply, even if you're a busy person, and then we'll talk about next steps. So the standard American diet is just 2.5% of whole grains, right? 2.5%. That's just amazing. And let's talk about maybe one of the reasons that is. Okay, there's good carbs and there's bad carbs. Carbohydrates have gotten a bad rap today. In fact, if you take a look at this list here, there's actually good carbs. So good carbs are complex, they're unrefined, fruits, unprocessed grains, vegetables, legumes, foods, grains that have a low glycemic index, which means when you eat them, your body doesn't release a lot of insulin. Whole grains, starchy vegetables, and some complex carbs like brown rice are stripped of their fiber when processed into white rice and provide less nutrition. So unprocessed is better. Now, the bad carbs, highly processed things like cookies, candy, simple refined carbohydrates, French fries, white flour, pretzels, high fructose corn syrup. When you go through the soft drink aisle in a store, look at the labels. You see high fructose corn syrup in almost everything because it's very inexpensive and they don't have to put a lot in there to really sweeten it up, and it's just incredibly bad for you. So fruits contain simple carbs, but they're really full of healthy vitamins and minerals, so they're actually very good for you. And what we want to do is move away from some of these bad carbs going towards the good carbs. Some people are just so fed up with the bad carbs that they've eliminated all carbohydrates from the diet. The good news, that's actually not necessarily, and I think, counterproductive. Here's a really interesting study. Now, this is called a meta-analysis, whereas in a meta-analysis, they look at a variety of the published studies that are out there to draw a conclusion. And they studied whole grain consumption and the risk of cardiovascular disease, cancer, and all causes that impact mortality. And I'll just cut to the chase here if you look at their conclusion. Okay, this meta-analysis, and you can see here it was a result of over 45 studies from 64 publications were analyzed. That's a lot of people and a lot of studies, and the evidence concluded that whole grain intake is associated with a reduced risk of coronary heart disease, cardiovascular disease, and total cancer, and mortality from all causes, including respiratory diseases, infectious diseases, diabetes, and all non-cardiovascular, non-cancer causes. Pretty much everything that impacts and shortens your life. These findings support dietary guidelines that recommend increased intake of whole grains to reduce the risk of chronic diseases and premature mortality. So this just isn't one study, it's a conclusion based on 45 studies from 64 well-regarded scientific publications all around the world. So Here's an example of some of these heart-healthy grains. Now, some of these grains you may be familiar with, but you just don't eat very often. Who knows, maybe some of them you incorporate in your diet all the time. Quinoa, amaranth, buckwheat, millet, barley, bulgur, brown rice, triticale, whole wheat, and oats. And I'll tell you, it's a very easy to incorporate in your diet. These grains are very cheap. Usually the best organic grains, like $5 a pound, and a pound of grains goes a long ways. It's really economical. Typically, when I cook for me and my family, a cup of grains and 2 cups of liquid, and boom, that'll be enough, for a family meal. And sometimes I even got leftovers I can put in the fridge and heat it up again the next day. And some of these foods you may be familiar with, some of them you may never heard of before. Now, I eat amaranth all the time. It's delicious. And I was watching one of these cooking shows, professional chefs, they're having a contest, and this was included as one of their ingredients. And some of these professional chefs never even had it before. And of course, I just laughed. But even if you never had them, try them. There's so many different grains available. You're going to find some that you like. In fact, probably most of them. Now, what if you're really, really busy, right? And you don't really got a time to cook these grains. I mean, oatmeal, great way to get oatmeal in the morning, but it does take a little time to cook it up. I'm going to tell you there is incredible whole grain cereal available today. Now, I tell you, this one I love by Living Intentions. They call this activated, where not only do they include a lot of whole grains, but all kinds of these really healthy superfoods like certain fruits and seeds and things like that. Absolutely delicious. Here's another one. And if you just take a look, these foods are available. These foods are available, real simple and fast too. Now, in the anti-inflammatory diet, they call for soy. Okay, great. I put a cup of soy milk on my cereal and I got my serving for the day. Simple. And it's so delicious and very quick, and there's a huge variety. Now, remember, I'm emphasizing whole grain cereal, not the other kind, which is not whole grain. So if you see boxes like this, no. And especially don't be feeding them to your kids, right? This stuff tastes so delicious, and it's just so much better for you than this stuff. Now, that's a really fast way to start putting grains in your diet. So let's talk about legumes next. What are the health benefits of legumes? Lower cholesterol. They're high in iron, prevents constipation, high in protein, reduce risk of heart disease, low in calories, stabilizes blood sugar, increases energy, high in fiber. And there's a tremendous variety of legumes out there. Take a look at this picture. Some of these legumes you may be eating all the time. Some of them you may never heard of. They're all fantastic. And I'm just telling you, so easy to get. You just keep them in your pantry. They keep forever. And I tell you, I'll give you some shortcuts to cooking them in a minute. But just take a look at this wide variety here. Just tremendous varieties of food out there. And what's interesting is most of us are just stick with 1 or 2 of these types, and that's all we eat our whole life, and we're missing out on all these others, which all have different nutrient benefits and are just fantastic. Now, what if you are one of these very busy people, and cooking grains and cooking beans is wonderful, but it takes a long time? I'm going to give you some really, really good tips. The first is this one. Rice cookers can cook grain as well. And I'll tell you, I like this one because not only does it cook, rice and grains, not only is it inexpensive, $15 I found this one here, but it's got a little tray at the top. This is a steamer tray. So you can actually put your grains and your water in the bottom and then load it up with vegetables or fish for that matter on the top and steam it. And when your grains are done, your food is steamed and it's done as well. Fantastic way to save time, an incredible healthy way to eat. I mean, just fantastic. And $15, forget about it. Now, the thing with this item though, I will tell you, grains take maybe, say half an hour or so to cook in here, maybe a little less, a little more, depending on the type of grain or legume you're making. Now, if you're even more busy, you can get one of these. It's an electric pressure cooker. I got to tell you, I'm busy at home, especially if you got kids. You don't want to necessarily have to stand by the stove and watch these grains so they don't burn. You know what I mean? You got it on the burner and you got to stir it to make sure it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan and burn. What I love about the electric rice cooker and the electric pressure cooker is you just throw it in. And with this example, this one from House Smile, the 6-quart 7-in-1 multi-use, it's got buttons here, and if you got grains, they got a separate setting for what they call multi-grains. You just push that button and you walk away and it beeps when you're done. Go back to watching TV, right? They got another button here for porridge or oatmeal. They have another button here for rice. And then they got buttons for pretty much every other kind of food you can imagine. Meat, stews, you name it. But I'm telling you, it doesn't get any easier for a busy person. You put in, a cup of grains, 2 cups of water, you push the button, you walk away, go back to watching TV or whatever you like to do. This thing beeps when it goes off, and your food comes out, and it's perfect. And I'm going to give you just a couple of little tips here. If you're using a rice cooker, if you're using an electric pressure cooker, or even if you're cooking these grains on the stove, which is fine, but if you're using the stove and a pot, then you got to watch it and make sure it doesn't burn. But hey, that works too. You don't got to buy one of these if you don't want to. Cooking them on the stove works. But let me show you some ways that you can really kick these grains up a notch with nutrients, just very simply. So one thing you can do when you're cooking these grains is to use bone broth. Now, if you want to make bone broth at home, that's the best, but it takes a little bit of time. The bone broth you got in the store, you got to be careful. Some of this bone broth is just bouillon, and it doesn't really contain any of the nutrients from the bones at all. They just call it broth, and it's just bouillon in there. Some of the bone broth you can get in the carton in the store is actual, real healthy bone broth. Great, but I tell you, I go through that fast because I cook a lot of grains. This Beyond Bone Broth by a company called Jarrow is a powder. It lasts a long time. I throw a scoop of that powder in there with my grains, and not only do I get bone broth, but they include some special supplements here that have been shown to impact bone health. And I tell you, it tastes great. They got one that's chicken flavor, one that's beef flavor. I put in a scoop with my grains, and I know I'm getting all that good nutrition. And although this is an animal product, it's very low in fat, very low in calories, very dense in nutrients, right? Especially that calcium. Great for the bones. Now, another part of the anti-inflammatory diet is mushrooms. I don't know. If I just go to the store and buy fresh mushrooms and put them in a salad, that's great. But sometimes the store doesn't have the mushrooms. Sometimes I forget, whatever. These dried mushrooms by a company called Fungus Among Us, this is all metally. So they're all mixed, right? They're all organic, and they last a while. You can just take a few of these dried mushrooms and throw them with your grains, and when you cook them, they kind of expand into the regular type size of mushroom. So you can store a lot of them. Just keep them in your pantry, and just great way to get your mushrooms, just throwing them with your grains. And one of the secrets I learned at the Natural Gourmet Cooking Institute was to include kombu when you cook grains. Generally, when you're cooking grains or soup or stew or beans or whatever, if you look, any of their cookbooks, they typically recommend throwing in a strip of kombu. Very inexpensive. It's a seaweed, and it's a nutritional powerhouse from the sea. You just throw that in, and you're just soaking all these wonderful nutrients right into those grains, making them even more healthy. Now, this is all fairly inexpensive stuff, and it's just, if you're going to take the time to get healthier and you want to boost, your intake of these healthy nutrients, that's a real easy way to do it, to just throw it in when you're cooking your grains or your legumes or whatever. So, I want to remind you that everybody in this course is eligible for a complimentary health makeover. Like I said in the first module, if you could just watch a video and become healthier, I don't think we would need anything else. Sadly, that's not the case. So to help people get from where they are to actually implementing this stuff, I offer a complimentary health makeover, and we talk about blending these foods to impact these various aspects of your health in your life. There's foods that impact your mood, your stress levels if you're an executive, your immune system, your ability to relax and sleep well, working out, things that impact your hair, your skin, your nails, how you look, your energy, and extending your life and reducing disease. And so in your one-on-one, we can really laser in on one of these benefits and then talk about how to blend the right foods to really impact that. So what I recommend as your next step is to stock your pantry with a variety of grains. If you're going to the store, just don't get one, get 5, get 6, just different ones. Keep them in your cabinet. I mean, they're so cheap. A pound of these really healthy organic grains, like $5, and believe me, a pound lasts a long time. Watch the next module on fruits and veggies. That's key. You want to keep this going. Watch our next module. And remember to schedule your free healthy makeover by sending an email to the supersmoothie@protonmail.com. You don't need to wait till you finish. You can get started right away after today. Just put makeover in the subject line, put your contact in your email, and either me or my assistant will call you to schedule the appointment. So I look forward to seeing you in the next module, fruits and veggies. Thank you very much.